Welcome, Devika, to this Essential Ethics interview series for the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics. I'm Subbu Vincent, Director of Journalism and Media Ethics. This is intended to be an interview for business owners on how they're handling both the crisis of the pandemic, and also what your outlook is in terms of the reopening of the economy and all of the questions that actually come with that. Before we get into the questions, Devika, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what your role is in the Jack in the Box and Denny's franchise businesses, and also about the business itself? What is the scale of the business, of the operation, and how many employees, and so on? And then I'll get into some of my ethics-related questions.
Sure thing. Hi, Subbu. Thanks for having me here. So my role So an overview of the business itself is that we have different restaurant franchises across California, spanning from Sacramento all the way down to Fresno near Yosemite area. And so within those two franchises, we have Denny's and Jack in the Boxes, both are large brand chain names, which most people are aware of. So my specific role within the company is that I'm director of operations. And so what that means is that I handle operations on a day-to-day basis and make sure that things are running smoothly within each and every store. We have managers in the stores, and then we also have district managers. I work more closely with the district managers, who then basically implement different initiatives. They give me different ideas. We collaborate as a team to basically make sure that we are staying within the brand standards, within the state and local standards, and while maintaining, just giving our guests and customers the best experience possible. And so I also look at, on the director of operations side, I look at financials, I look at different marketing initiatives, different types of things that we could be doing to give the customer a better experience, as well as, bringing in more business to us at the same time, and how we can give back to the community at the same time.
So, give us a sense of the numbers. How many employees did you have before the pandemic hit? And what have you had to do as far as employees go, contract employees, full-time employees, and so on? If you can.
Right. So as far as full-time employees go, we had, in all of our restaurants, we have all the management as full-time employees. So across 16 restaurants, I'd say we have about 20 to 23 that are full-time employees, which have still stayed on as full-time employees throughout the pandemic as well. As far as the majority of our employees being in the fast casual and fast food restaurant industry is gonna be part-time. And so roughly total, we had about 450 employees before the pandemic.
What's been the main impact from the pandemic itself? If you had to put down one or two things as major impacts, both in your family as the owner, as well as employees, what could you tell us about anything that stands out substantially?
Right. So as we know, with the whole shelter-in-place order, Governor Newsom has ordered all dine-in restaurants at a complete standstill. So we were completely shut down. We were every single one of our restaurants up to today has been only dine-in and takeout, or not dine-in, only takeout and to-go orders and delivery orders. So we had a lot of to-go orders, and we had a lot of delivery partners, but now we've seen a larger shift into customers using delivery platforms such as Uber Eats, Grubhub, DoorDash, in order to get the same meals that they want. So people still want to eat, but the biggest problem is that we're not open. Denny's is a 24-hour business generally, but because of the pandemic, it doesn't make business sense for us to be running 24 hours when the shelter in place has been lasted until 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. when people are inside. So unfortunately, because of that, which has been a really unfortunate thing, is that a lot of our employees, we haven't been able to provide the same amount of hours to all of our employees. And although they are still retained as part-time, and we try to cycle through and make sure everyone is evenly given the number of hours, because we want to keep our employees. Our employees are what keeps us going. But that has been the biggest impact, is that we don't have nearly as much as business as we did before the pandemic. The restaurant industry has taken a huge toll with the pandemic and all the shelter-in-place orders. It's been tough, not only as a business owner, that we aren't seeing the same income in order to sustain our day-to-day costs of just running the business. At the same time, it's a sense of feeling bad because we're not able to give these employees who are like our family the same amount of hours and opportunity to work. So it's been quite a struggle for the past few months in that respect.
So that kind of sets the stage for what I was going to ask you. One of the things we talk about in ethics is, and you're in law, so you would also know this, is that there may be, there may be decisions where you have multiple valid legally right options. They may all be legal. There may be options you have to choose from, but they're not all ethically the same. You might find that this is actually complicated. It might harm, some decisions might harm more people, and other decisions might actually harm people less from a harm aspect. Is there an example you can give from your journey in the business so far, of any one decision where the options before you, either on handling what the government was saying in terms of small business loans or relief, or in handling employees, where you had multiple legal options, they all looked legal, but ethically you felt that this is what you actually were struggling with? Is there anything like that you could actually tell us about? Because that would actually help us navigate further.
Yeah, definitely. So just to clarify your question, you're just asking basically if there were any ethical decisions that needed to be made in this whole process.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I had mentioned before, one was specifically with Denny's and Jack in the Box as well, is that closing the hours. No, there was no mandate that said that we couldn't be open 24 hours. We couldn't. And at that point, we knew that certain people we'd be cutting hours, and it was a tough decision on that, because as much as we wanted to, provide help for these employees during this tough time, it didn't make financial sense to remain open for that complete period of time. Though now I am happy to say that we are starting to open up and provide more hours because things are seeming to a little bit lighten up in certain areas of California, where we're able to, start to reopen and bring employees back to normal.
So in that journey, when it appears all along that you are prioritizing the interests of employees as much as you can, even though the cost factor is actually pretty serious for the business. What about your own stake as owners of the business? How much of the fiscal shock is actually, I know this gets a bit more personal, but as an owner, is this like a major shock for you financially, or is this something that you folks can withstand for a few more months? How does it work? Because there's a range of stories we hear in the field.
Yeah, it's a huge shock. Initially, when this hit, sales were down 80%, and that's a huge number to be down. In the beginning stages of the pandemic, it was very tough, and luckily the government has come out with different initiatives, such as the Paycheck Protection Program and the CARES Economic Disaster Loan, which provides small business owners the opportunity to continue operating and help them during this time. So we've been lucky in that respect to take advantage of those different programs to help us throughout this time. But it's not free money, right? So at some point we will need to repay that back at some point. But it's helping right now to help us sustain. But we're still very smart in thinking about where we're placing what resources, what is absolutely necessary at this moment. Like, for example, one of the restaurants haven't mandated that there needs to be a sneeze guard. Even before any the things were open, we wanted to make sure that our stores were open for customers to come back in, and they felt comfortable coming back in whenever that may be. And so we implemented every single store having sneeze guards to protect not only our employees, but also protecting the customers. So at the end of all this, our health comes first. So we did all that. We took those steps before we were proactive in those steps, essentially. So it's been tough financially. It's not any surprise, especially in the restaurant industry. We hear it day and night on the news, but luckily there are certain programs that are helping us during this short time.
Since you got into the kind of preparation you're having to make for the reopening and also
Mhm.
additional precautions you're taking. What is your outlook as both as a business owner and as a person, like you say, who's concerned about health, that health actually comes first? There's a range of conversations happening between the different states in America. Some states just want to reopen. There's a bit of political polarization in the whole reopening aspect itself. Where do you come in on full scale reopening, limited reopening, measured reopening? How do you see it from the point of view of your business when you try to balance health considerations, given where this is as an actual pandemic? There's no cure, there's no vaccine tested yet, etc., etc.
Right. And so we are seeing that in the media, how different other states have opened up and the impacts is happening. I don't necessarily think that's the safest way to go about it. If you don't have a mask, you don't require a mask in a restaurant, for example, right? California has taken a little bit more conservative route towards this, given the gravity of the situation. And as far as the restaurant industry, like I've mentioned, they're soon in certain parts of California, they've already opened up at a limited capacity, and I think that's what's necessary at this point in order to get back to normal life, whenever that may be in 1 or 2 years. But I think limited capacity with practicing social distancing and proper safety measures by all of our employees and customers, whatever we can do is a proper way to go about this right now. I know personally for our organization, our franchise organization, we've started training them already from past 3-4 weeks ago, based on this COVID training, just to re-emphasize with our employees how important this is. And we are doing temperature checks. We're doing clean, sanitizing everything. We have no silverware. We have all like disposable utensils, disposable condiments, anything that we can do to mitigate risk of any harm coming to anyone within the building.
And does the limited reopening with social distancing in restaurants, so that includes people sitting substantially away from each other than they would
Yep.
otherwise, and that means fewer customers in the restaurant. So it isn't
Right.
like business is going to bounce back to what it was earlier. So how
Right.
does that figure into your outlook for how many employees you'll be able to bring back on the rolls, the kind of support they might be getting from government relief programs? Do you see a positive outlook for, taking your hiring levels back to what it was fairly quickly, or do you think it's all uncertain? I mean, how are you approaching staffing in this kind of
Yeah.
graded reopening experience?
Right. So that's actually a great question, because we aren't open yet. We aren't at 50% capacity. We aren't even at 25% capacity yet. We just don't know what the consumers are going to do, whether they're going to continue sticking to go and delivery orders, or if they themselves feel comfortable enough to sit in the restaurant. So it's an unknown. I mean, this whole pandemic has been an unknown for all of us, and unfortunately, it continues to be an unknown, especially in this arena. But we do hope. Our hope is that we can slowly. I don't expect it to happen within the next month or two, but slowly build up to the level where we can get back to our normal staffing levels.
So I'm going to get to personal question. We're sort of coming to the last part of this chat. As a leader, this everybody says this is an unprecedented global calamity. This kind of stuff, this kind of thing has never happened in any country at any scale.
Right.
How have you changed as a leader, as a result of this experience, and as a business owner? Were you ready for it? What about you has remained the same? What about you has changed?
I cannot say I was ready for this. This is definitely not something that I would have ever thought I would ever have to deal with in my lifetime. Same with many other people. But to answer your question, I would say my resilience has stayed the same. I'm not in this for a short term. I'm not giving up hope. I'm continuing to do the best that we can to support our community and let the community know that we're here for them. I mean, we've signed up for different initiatives such as freemeals.org, which provides low-cost meals to families in need, and also free meals to seniors 3 days a week. So really we've been a little more compassionate I've been a little more compassionate knowing that others are going through this as well. It's not just me. Everybody is going through this and we're all in this together. So wherever and whatever we can do to support as a business, as Denny's or Jack in the Box, that we can do to support the community, I think is the best thing that we can do at this moment, because everybody needs help in some way.
So just as a final question, in terms of business associations, so there are always associations of organizations in, democratic life. Is there a particular initiative your company has actually taken with any association of restaurants to represent yourself and solutions to the ramping up in a way that individually your restaurant business may not have done? Is there anything good that emerged from common conversations you're having with other businesses?
Do you mind rephrasing that question?
Are you part of any association of businesses in the restaurant space that has actually helped either limit the damage from the pandemic or open up more options for employees or help you with revamping?
Right. So we are part of the California Restaurant Association, which is a group of restaurateurs in California, and I know that they have done some work to push towards the Senate to get certain things approved in terms of loan repayment times, loan longevity, which is going to help definitely in the long term. So our hope as restaurateurs is that those initiatives get passed, because that's not only going to help us sustain our presence with as a business, but it will allow us to stay alive in a sense.
All right, so that's pretty much all I had to actually ask you, Devika. Thank you very much for coming on the program. Was there anything else that I might have, that you feel you want to add in terms of decisions you're making in a public-minded way that you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of industries have been hit severely during this pandemic, and we're no exception. The best thing that I can do as a restaurant owner or a business owner in general is that be mindful of what we're doing, how we're doing it, and ultimately we're running a business, but we need to do it in a mindful way that we're not negatively impacting our community or our surroundings.